it's exciting to be back in the studio again.
It's been a while, Joy.
We want to thank all our fans for tuning in. We're going to try to bring the show to another level this year, and we've been on 2 exciting trips since we filmed last time. We've been in Hawaii, no place like Hawaii.
No place like Hawaii.
Talk about that in one of our segments, but then we've also been on an exciting cruise out of the East Coast. But boy, there's some news about cruising.
Well, speaking of cruising, yes, the Costa Concordia has been in the news a lot lately and continues to be. And I just, you know, there's a lot of questions now about safety and cruising and that sort of thing. And, you know, people now, they ask us all the time, you know, selling many cruises? And yes, we are. You know, like we were saying, first-time cruisers, that people who have never been on a cruise before might be a little bit more hesitant now. The men out there who don't like to be out of their control or comfort zone. But anyway, I think people who've been on cruises, you and I have been on several, this won't have a big effect on those people because they know how safe it is and just how regulated it is as well. You know, one thing they do on cruise ships is the muster drills are very serious business. And it just seems to me the reporting on this story, they're trying to make the crew seem like they didn't know what they were doing and just chaos on board ship after it hit the rocks. That's a new drink now, Concordia on the rocks. Anyway, they, every ship that we've been on, I mean, it's very organized. Usually the passengers are reluctant to participate because they've been on the boat since noon and half in the bag, and now they have to go.
It up,
yeah, you know, oh gosh, now we got to do this lifeboat drill. So you know, now all of a sudden it's you know, it's taken front and center as far as and the rule is, or the law is, that you have to have a lifeboat drill within 24 hours of sailing. And I think every cruise we've been on, it's been the night of.
Oh, within hours of shoving off.
Yeah, and if you don't show up, they come get you. And, you know, it's very serious business. They take it very... Part of the problem with the Concordia was it sailed out of Barcelona, and then it picked up an additional 700 passengers in Civitavecchia, the port for Rome. So and this is a little bit foggy now too, but because some of the people that got on in Barcelona claimed that they didn't have a lifeboat drill as well. So anyway, the people that did get on in Italy hadn't gone through the lifeboat drill yet. So I think that contributed to, you know, to some of the confusion. They didn't know where to go and that sort of thing. So anyway, cruising is probably the safest mode of transportation, and there are just so many options out there. I would hate to see people restrict themselves or affected by this latest incident.
So let's talk about our cruise that we took, which was really exciting.
Yeah, okay. Oh, I got the last transmission from, have you heard back to the Concordia, the transmission between the captain.
You seem to be fascinated by this.
Well, it's so fascinating. And the guy, the Coast Guard guy that was chewing out the captain over the transmissions they have, you know, what, Schettino, you want to go back to your home and eat your gnocchi in a corner like a little girl? Is that what you want, Schettino? Get back on the boat. You know, so it was just hilarious.
Really? He did?
Oh, it was great.
I love your Italian accent.
Well, yeah, it's a hybrid. Anyway, and the last transmission that they received from the captain was, Bella, hold my Chianti. I'm going to try something. And anyway, it's typical Italian.
Like we had to go through 4 minutes so you could get that joke off?
Yeah, we had to redo the whole segment because I almost brought costumes.
Okay, well, there's a whole segment on your
But it was so Italian, you know. He's, you know, like driving his Ferrari. He's got a girlfriend on board. His wife is defending him. It's just so Italian.
Yeah, it is. Anyway. That's why I said, you know, when we heard the story, it was just like, oh, it's just a typical Italian driver. You know, rules are just suggestions, you know.
I bet you're glad we redid this.
Yeah, I really am. Yawn, yawn.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, let's talk about something fun, which was our cruise out of the East Coast. We were celebrating on a Royal Caribbean ship, which was the Jewel of the Seas.
Right.
And it was my father's 88th birthday, my mother's 81st. I wanted to do something that didn't involve as much air travel as going to Europe. So we started out in Boston. Wasn't that cool?
Boston's a great town. I almost wish you would have gone in a day or two early just to stay in Boston.
Yeah.
But it's a
Easy
great,
flight. My
easy
parents
flight.
flew nonstop from West Palm. We flew nonstop from Detroit, met there. We were on the ship in the afternoon. And it was the fall, so we picked up some color change. Talk about the itinerary, Tom.
Well, sailed out of Boston, like I said, and then 2 stops in Maine. Portland was the first one. And we had a great time there. Our first lobsters in port.
We had lobster every night, other than when we were on board the ship.
That's right, yeah, and never got sick of it. And lobster rolls, too. Oh, man,
I know,
those
that was
lobster
sort
rolls.
of your thing. How about
I
my
wanna go
mom's
back.
lobster pot pie?
Lobster pot pie.
Yeah, and I'd never been in Maine. So Portland I thought was really interesting. I didn't see my favorite author there, but then we went to Bar Harbor.
Bar Harbor.
Which was, really unique. Acadia National Park, and then New Brunswick, and then ended up in Nova Scotia, which is where, speaking of ship disasters, where all the bodies were taken after the Titanic went down.
Yeah.
So it was just, I can highly recommend this cruise. It was, for under $800, you've got transportation, meals, and your accommodations. So
Right.
put that on your list. It's a great trip.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when we come back, Tom, let's talk a little bit about that, and then talk maybe a little bit about Hawaii.
Sounds great.
Okay,
All
mahalo.
right, mahalo.
We'll be back right after this.
Aloha.
If you haven't donated blood before, or it's been a long time since you have donated, please come out. 97% of us will either need blood or know someone who needs blood in our lifetimes. That's almost all of us. Plus, blood is used for premature infants, patients battling cancer, people with sickle cell anemia, as well as many others. Did you know that less than 5% of the eligible population, meaning those that would be good candidates to donate blood, actually do? That's about 95% of people who could donate that aren't doing it. You never know when you or someone you love will need blood. Blood is perishable and only has a shelf life of 42 days. You can donate every 56 days, 6 times a year. Please come out and donate and give the gift of life.
Well, Faith, it's so great to be back in the studio with you again.
Joy, I missed you.
I know, but I've been sailing on Royal Caribbean since we saw each other
and I
last.
appreciate that support.
Well, I appreciate it. It's one of my favorite cruise lines. Tell us what's new with Royal Caribbean.
Joy, one of the most exciting things that's new with Royal Caribbean is our new marketing campaign, and it really, I believe, is an emotional call, as it's the sea is calling. And I don't know if you've had the opportunity to see the commercials.
I have, of course.
But-
And I don't have a lot of time to watch television, but they do create an emotion in me, actually.
It creates an emotion in me as well when you think about how vast and mighty the sea is and how much it surrounds all of us. And thinking about the tranquility and the peacefulness and all of those elements that the sea brings. I love the campaign, The Sea is Calling, Answer It Royally. So that's really big news at Royal Caribbean.
Well, and I think that it's very clever because for those of us who have cruised, there is something unique about being out to sea, and I think that is one of the things that calls people back. And I always say to people, you really can't compare it to any other travel experience. When you're out with no land in sight, it's a unique experience.
It's tranquil.
Yeah.
It's tranquil and it's energizing, and it really centers you. When you just talk about the peacefulness of the sea, it really puts in perspective what life's all about and has this very calming effect.
But there's another component to faith, and that is, for instance, in Europe or some of the, or the East Coast cruise that I did, seeing the coastline from the sea is also another unique experience that you can only get with large ships sailing. I mean, getting up on deck to see the sail into Malta or Santorini, or it's really unique.
It is unique. There's a perspective that you will never get from being on land only. And then what also is really exciting about traveling by sea is those multiple ports that you get to see and unpack once. I think you and I had talked about it before, that if you were to travel some of these ports of call within Europe by land, it would take you 2 and 3 weeks. But when you can do it by sea, you have 7 days and you're seeing just a vast array of different destinations.
Well, the value, and speaking of the East Coast also, I've never been to Maine. I had never been to Nova Scotia. And, you know, to be able to do it in a 7-day trip for under, you know, $150 a day.
And that's all your meals, your entertainment, your accommodation,
Transportation.
5-star. Exactly.
Yeah, and that's one of those cruises that's really interesting because you can just walk off the ship. Unlike, for instance, when you get to Rome or
Right.
Civitavecchia, you know, you're about 2 hours to get to the to Rome
To the
from
heart of, yeah.
But this is just one of those real unique experiences. So yeah, the value, I think, especially in Europe, is something that I think people are astounded by. So that's why we sort of had this desire to make sure that people realize what the value is.
Yeah, the value proposition of sailing to Europe or any vacation on board ship is a true value of time and experience.
So as far as the upcoming itineraries for the season, what are the premier itineraries for Royal Caribbean in the summer season?
Oh, that's the million-dollar question. They're all.
Yeah.
Royal Caribbean is all over the world, Joy. We're in Australia, New Zealand. We're in Asia. We're in the Caribbean. We're in Europe. We're in Bermuda.
Brazil?
Well, not in the summer months. Right now,
we're true,
in,
not in the
exactly.
summer months, but
right now. So depending on where your heart and your imagination want to take you, Royal Caribbean has the destination. And me and you, being true travelers, I mean, where do you say this is the hot spot? They're all hot spots in my book.
But you know, one that I think is really interesting is Bermuda.
Oh, when I close my eyes, Joy, and I think about what heaven might be like, Bermuda becomes that picture.
Well, let's talk about Bermuda in the upcoming segment, because Bermuda is one of those destinations that I think people have sort of forgotten about with the all-inclusives in the Southern Caribbean. So let's come back and talk about that. Okay, and I'm just going to.
Hi, it's the sea calling. Remember me? Sparkling water, horizons that go on and on. Plus, there's rock climbing, ice skating, and zip lines. Answer my call soon. But remember, I'm quite majestic, so please answer it royally.
Okay, the blood drive is in a few days. Here's what you need to do to prepare your body for the best donation experience possible.
Start stocking up on iron-rich foods like green leafy vegetables, lean meats, nuts, and berries. Here's a list of iron-rich foods that you can eat. Also, avoid fatty foods a day or so before you plan to donate. Be sure to get a good night's sleep before donation day. Drink plenty of non-caffeinated beverages like juice or water before and after you donate. Be sure you eat breakfast, and don't forget about lunch if you plan to donate in the afternoon.
Thanks for your help with the life-saving mission of the American Red Cross.
You are a hero.
Thanks, Tom, for agreeing to come back. We just touched on sort of the ambiance of Australia. Now I want to hear I want you to sort of do a travelogue about Perth and some of the things you got to do while you were there.
Well, Perth is all the way on the west coast, and truthfully, it's up the river from Fremantle. And Fremantle's the coastal city. It's actually where the America's Cup was held the first time that America lost the yachting race, and Australia became the defender and hosted it out of Fremantle. So the city really got rejuvenated and completely overhauled for the event. And because of that, it's an interesting mix of new and old. There's a lot of very old, but there's also some very new. and you go up the river to Perth. And
Very old in terms of architecture or attitude or both?
Really architecture.
Okay.
It's still a seafaring city at heart. A lot of fishermen, a lot of boats, a little bit industrial in that regard. But within it, it's become very chic, very artsy within that. So it's kind of an interesting mix. It's actually where Bon Scott of AC/DC is from.
Really?
And just outside Heath Ledger is buried just outside the city. So that's kind of put it on the map, that area, a little bit. And you go up the river to Perth, and you have really one of the top 5 largest cities in Australia, although it's probably the least well known of those cities. And it's really about 80 to 85% of the entire state's population lives within this city, but the state is half of the country. So you can think of how spread out that country, how empty that half of the country really is. But if you go to the north and south, even within Western Australia, to the south, there's forests of some of the largest trees in the world. To the north, there's the Pinnacle Desert, which is a national heritage site, which looks like a scene straight out of Mars with rocks jutting up and out. And then you move towards the middle of the country, and it becomes that really red center that Australia is kind of famous for, or the outback. And you get to the middle, and there's Ayers Rock, or Uluru, and it's the largest monolith in the world.
Is that the Aboriginal name?
Uluru is the Aboriginal name, and it's really a religious site for them, but it's the largest monolith in the world, and it looks like a complete empty desert, and all of a sudden, boom, there pops this huge, huge rock. And you can actually climb to the top. We climbed it, and you hike through nearby rocky passages, the Olgas. And I mean, you're literally right in the middle of the desert. There's nothing around. They built an airstrip in the middle of there and a resort, and that's kind of about it.
Wow.
But you head south from there.
How did you tour around? Because it's not like Europe where the trains are real. What was that?
Really, everything was air travel.
Okay.
Australia's the size of the United States with far, far less population, so everything's very spread out. So when you talk about those urban hubs, urban, I guess, if you will, you really do have to fly.
And they can't support, because of the population,
that's right.
ground transportation.
Well, it's just the massive, massive distances.
Yes.
I mean, even when you're talking about Perth towards Uluru, or even out a little bit to the south, east of that, towards Adelaide, you're talking about like Los Angeles to St. Louis to get from one spot to the next, and those are really nothing in between. You probably wouldn't take a train there in the United States, and you wouldn't take a train there in Australia either.
Yeah, that's true. But it sounds like it's so much more diverse than I had thought, Tom.
It's amazing. There's really that stereotypical kind of image of Australia as just this dry outback. And that's true. It does take up a large swath of land in Australia. But if you think about Australia, there's also snow skiing in one of the 7 summits. There's some of the wettest rainforests in the world up by Cairns, where the Great Barrier Reef is. Some of the tallest trees in the world are down to the southwest. You talk about the very arid areas. And then, it really is diverse. And then that's not even talking about your cities like Melbourne, Brisbane, or Sydney, which are also, some of the well-known.
If you had to pick a favorite, what would you say it was?
Sydney and Brisbane are really absolutely tremendous areas. They're so different, but they're so unique in terms of their Australian culture that's involved. And obviously, everybody thinks of the Opera House, and everybody thinks of the bridge. But when you talk about the markets, and you talk about the surfing in Brisbane, and you talk about really the people, it is so different up in there.
Did you go to Manly and Bondi when you were in Sydney?
We went to Bondi. It was actually the winter by the time that we got there. So
we were there in the winter too, but they're still swimming and surfing.
Well, they're swimming and surfing, and you look at the pool that's built into the ocean there for the polar plunges that swim right in the ocean. The ocean just laps into it.
Yeah, I of course had dinner at Icebergs, which is one of the most expensive restaurants I've ever dined in. I did not get in the water.
No, it's probably a good idea.
I could watch all the good-looking Australian men swimming in that pool.
Well, and when you're there, you're the ones with the accent.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
The dynamic is flipped a little bit.
Yeah, but it's just so unique. And we're almost out of time. But could you just touch a little on the Aboriginal culture?
We went camping up in the Aboriginal areas in Broome through the program, and I'll tell you that they truly are some of the most misunderstood people in the world. They have a lot to offer, and Australia has a long way to go with regards to its racial climate and some of the problems that they have. But the people that we met truly have a depth of knowledge that is really untapped, and Australia could really could really grow if they can utilize that. And they were tremendous people with
I love the
a great
art.
culture.
I bought some music when I was there. Did you?
The music with the didgeridoos.
Of course. I mean, it's kind of
It's eerie in a way.
yeah,
but in a beautiful kind of way.
But, yeah, but eerie and
you know, everything from your stereotypical boomerang to that didgeridoo. They really do have a great deal to offer, and I truly hope that, you know, in these coming years they continue to make progress.
Maybe we should take the show on the road. We can go and do something just on
good.
that. Okay,
Sounds
and
good
you
to
could,
me.
Okay, great.
Let's go tomorrow.
So if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you to come back one more time because I want to talk about some of the exciting stuff you did after you left Australia, which I think is
Absolutely.
unique as well.
Sounds
so
good.
thanks a lot, Tom, and we'll be back right after this.
If you haven't donated blood before, or it's been a long time since you have donated, please come out. 97% of us will either need blood or know someone who needs blood in our lifetimes. That's almost all of us. Plus, blood is used for premature infants, patients battling cancer, people with sickle cell anemia, as well as many others. Did you know that less than 5% of the eligible population, meaning those that would be good candidates to donate blood, actually do? That's about 95% of people who could donate that aren't doing it. You never know when you or someone you love will need blood. Blood is perishable and only has a shelf life of 42 days. You can donate every 56 days, 6 times a year. Please come out and donate and give the gift of life.
Hello, Faith with Royal Caribbean International. Today's tip is I want to recommend that you use a local travel agent. There's nothing better in the world than having somebody right in your backyard that knows you and understands your personal likes and dislikes. And let's face it, things happen. And who are you going to go to? The internet? There's nobody to pick up the phone and speak with. When you have a personal relationship with your local travel agent here in Michigan, they're your advocate. So Royal Caribbean absolutely recommends you using a travel agent.